Hello, and welcome back to another Talking Freight, brought to you by Ceresys, the transportation management company. Today, we are remaking one of our most popular Talking Freight videos, how to calculate freight class. Why? Well, just look here on our YouTube channel for it, and you'll see that I'm about 35 pounds lighter, I got a haircut, and we've invested in some pretty high quality video equipment. Determining your shipment's freight class is a vital step to effectively managing LTL freight, as it is a big factor in determining your freight hard costs, but also is a very important factor when it comes to dealing with any possible freight claims. Additionally, the most common problems that we hear in the consultation portion of our sales calls here at Ceresys are often related to not understanding what freight class to choose. We often hear things like, well, I'll just pick class 55 for all my freight. It's just what I've always done. Well, that customer is not understanding it's hurting them in the long run. The shipper may save some money on the freight shipment by picking a lower class, but then time is wasted when the carrier reclasses and the invoice doesn't match the expected costs, making a traffic manager seem ineffective. A little education, especially when it comes to freight class, can really help you save not only money, but time, resources, and most importantly, avoid delays in getting freight inbound or outbound to your customer. You can watch this entire video, of course, but we also want to give you a good takeaway. Simply click in the link in the description of this video to download your handy guide that you can keep at your desk to calculate freight class properly. So let's talk about freight class, and we'll go over how to calculate freight class. First, let's get on the same page. What is a freight class? Freight classes are designed to help you get common, standardized freight pricing for your shipment when working with different carriers, warehouses, and brokers. Freight classes are defined by the National Motor Freight Traffic Association, or the NMFTA, and made available through the NMFC, or National Motor Freight Classification. In the United States, each commodity or type of product is assigned an NMFC and corresponding class for less than truckload, or LTL, freight shipments. The NMFC system is a standardized method designed to give consumers a uniform pricing structure when transporting freight. Traditionally, there were 18 classes, which we'll cover here shortly, but there was a change by the NMFC in 2017 to go towards more density-based classification, leaving 11 classes that a shipped package may fall under, with class 60 being the least expensive, to class 400 as the most expensive. The number assigned to an item is important to freight carriers in determining the tariffs, which in turn determine the price charged to the shipper. Next, you'll need to know the factors on how to calculate freight class. Before you determine your freight class for your shipment, you must identify certain factors about your specific freight. Freight class is based on weight, length, height, density, ease of handling, value and liability from things like theft, damage, breakability, and spoilage. The definitions for each are as follows. The first factor is weight, length, and height, also known as density and value. The density is the space the item occupies in relation to its weight. The density is calculated by dividing the weight of the item in pounds by its volume in cubic feet. Your item's volume in cubic feet is length times width times height, divided by 1,728, where all dimensions are measured in inches. The density of your item equals weight divided by volume, where weight is measured in pounds and volume is measured in cubic feet. The second factor is stowability. Most freight stows well in trucks, trains, and boats, but some articles are regulated by the government or carrier policies. Some items cannot be loaded together. Hazardous materials are transported in specific manners. Excessive weight, length, or protrusions can make freight impossible to load with other freight. The absence of load-bearing surfaces makes freight impossible to stack. A quantifiable stowability classification represents the difficulty in loading and carrying these items. The third of 4 factors is handling. Most freight is loaded with mechanical equipment and poses no handling difficulties. But some freight, due to weight, shape, fragility, or hazardous properties, requires special attention. A classification that represents ease or difficulty of loading and carrying the freight is assigned to the items. The final factor is liability. Liability is the probability of freight theft or damage to adjacent freight. Perishable cargo or cargo prone to spontaneous combustion or explosion is classified based on liability and assigned a value per pound, which is the fraction of the carrier's liability. When classification is based on liability, density must also be considered. Now, before we show the newer density-based 11 freight class table, let's look at the traditional 18 classes, which most carriers still accept as the class. So what are the 18 different types of freight class? As you can see on the screen now, the 18 class table was class 50 all the way to class 500. Like the density-based table, the lower the class, the cheaper the freight rate. Now let's pivot. How about true density-based class? The NMFTA on August 5th, 2017 changed classification for true density-based items. Absent any unusual or significant handling, stowability, or liability characteristics, density is of prime importance in the assignments of classes. The CCSB has developed density guidelines that are based on the precedent of pertinent administrative as well as classification decisions. The density guidelines are used in the assignment of classes where the average density of a particular commodity or group of commodities is representative or reflective of the range of densities exhibited by that commodity or commodity group. Furthermore, the density and class relationships set forth in the guidelines presume that there are no unusual or significant handling, stowability, or liability characteristics, which would call for giving those characteristics additional or different weight in determining the appropriate class. Commodities or commodity groups exhibiting a wide density range not accurately reflected by a single overall average density may be assigned density-based classes, and therefore you can use the 11 class table. This is especially where there are no unusual or significant handling, stowability, or liability characteristics, and where there is no other feasible means of effectively narrowing the range, and where densities are distributed through the range. Commodities or commodity groups may be assigned classes predicated on a full density scale. In this regard, full-scale density classifications should generally provide the following standard progression as you see now with the new 11 class table on the screen. Let's pause to take a look at this table and see how it's different than the 18 class table. Now, let's go over it all and show a practical example to calculate freight class. Shippers can use 2 resources to get a freight class number or code for a commodity, using the NMFC book or using a program such as Class IT or FastClass. You can also refer to our downloadable resource by clicking on the link, as we said earlier, in the description below of this video. You can put in your information and download it and have it at your desk. But let's now go over a practical example. Using the NMFC book, we see that the NMFC code for plastic hose or tubing is 51140. Now that we know the NMFC number to properly freight class a shipment of 1 pallet of hosing, we need to know the pallet dimension and weight. This product ships on a standard pallet that can be double stacked for shipment. The dimensions are 48 inches, the length, by 40 inches, the width, by 45.5 inches, the height, and the weight, including the pallet, is 243.2 pounds. So we'll use the following calculations with this information. Remember your formulas. Length times width times height equals cubic inches. In this case of the hosing, that's 48 inches times 40 inches times 45.5 inches equaling 87,360 cubic inches. The next formula in calculating freight class, that's cubic inches divided by 1,728, equaling our cubic feet. And using the hosing number, that's 87,360 divided by that 1,728, and that is 50.6 cubic feet. And the last formula is getting the PCF. Divide the weight of the packing unit by the volume. Again, using the actual numbers from this hosing example, that's 243.2 pounds divided by 50.6 cubic feet. That gets us 4.8 pounds per cubic foot. We've gotten the magic number we need, a PCF of 4.8. Therefore, using the freight class table, our freight with NMFC number 51140-4 is rated at class 175, since this falls under the 11-tier new table from the NMFC. Again, it is very important as a shipper of freight you understand getting freight class. Getting it wrong will cost you. If you incorrectly classify your item to be shipped, it can be reclassified by the freight carrier. Disputing this is difficult, time-consuming, and you will be charged the difference, usually without a discount. That's it for this week's Talking Freight. Thanks for joining us for another episode. We'll see you next week. Oh, hold up before you go. Make sure you click over here to subscribe to our channel. Click on this box to watch all the videos in the current Parcel Talking Freight series, and click up here to go to Cerasis.com. Scroll down, and in the box, put in your email address and hit subscribe.